Mark Carney was appointed by 132,000 Liberal members. Many of them are minors, but I have no idea how he's going to be as a leader, and I have no idea what the leadership, what the platform is going to be for the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party, they always have to love their leader. Conservatives aren't like that at all. They have to respect the leader, and I think that's what Canada needs. Liberals don't necessarily govern based on convictions. They govern based on context. We have a new course on Taylor Swift.
Is that right?
This is what's going on.
Is that for real though?
It is absolutely for real. Yes.
The whole Liberal leadership race should have just been an email. Why on earth did you call that a debate?
Ms. Dhalla seemed upset to why they were disqualified. So they said that there were 10 different reasons why she was disqualified. They all stole ideas from the Conservatives. Waterloo has a deficit of $75 million this year. York University has a deficit of over $100 million. And I believe that people should have the power, not government.
Sylvain Charlebois is a renowned Canadian food professor, popularly called the Food Professor. He has authored several books, journals, and articles. He has also testified before the Canadian Senate a few times. He's ranked as one of the world's most cited scholars in food supply chain, in management, and in food value chains. So we talked December 23rd, and just before then was when we saw Chrystia Freeland that resigned, December 16th. And 23rd of December, exactly when we talked, that was when the Atlantic Caucus letter came in for Trudeau asking him to step down.
Oh,
And then throughout the Christmas season was when Trudeau stayed silent, and January 6th was when he asked the Governor General to prorogue Parliament and stating that he was going to step down and they're going to do a Liberal leadership race. And 2 debates after, March 9th of this year, Carney was declared a winner. In between all of those was all the chaos that we've seen with tariff wars between us and the United States and a few other countries as well. So yeah, for real, it feels like it's been forever. And I don't know what you make of all those events. Does it feel like 3 months to you or 3 years?
Yeah, I'm absolutely very concerned about our country. Our country is economically vulnerable. I mean, when you look at President Trump's strategy, he is weakening many countries, including his own, by the way. I mean, it's tariffs are just not good. I understand where he's going, but will come at a cost. And so it's weakening his economy. It's weakening Canada's economy because Canada really has benefited heavily on multilateralism. Well, that came to an end with Trump come back to the White House. And politically, Canada is also quite vulnerable. We saw in recent months, basically everyone going to Washington. It's just,
Right.
we saw cabinet ministers, we saw premiers going there, we saw city mayors going to the White House. I mean, that's what happens when you have no leadership right now. So I think March 14th is a good day. We'll have some sort of clearance in terms of who's going to be leading our country now. His name is Mark Carney, obviously, our 24th prime minister. So at least we'll have someone to lead caucus and the government. The problem with Prime Minister Carney is that he was never elected to any office. And I believe that's the first time it's ever happened in the history of our country. So he's not a legitimate prime minister. So I'm hoping that he will call an election so Canadians can actually give a very strong mandate, or at least a mandate to a government. Mark Carney was appointed by 132,000 Liberal members. Many of them are minors. The thing about that I didn't understand last weekend is that we have 400 Liberal members, but only I think 150,000 voted. So I don't know exactly what happened there. The race itself was not necessarily very good. Typically, a leader comes out of a race and you feel that that person deserved to win. I think it was the case for Pierre Poilievre because actually they had like 8 debates. The race lasted many, many months, I believe 6 months. PC Party had about 600,000 members. And of the 600,000 members, I think 400 voted or 450,000 voted. So when Pierre Poilievre, doesn't matter if you agree with the choice or not, he came out of the race deserving the leadership. In this case with Mark Carney, I think a lot of people don't feel he deserves it. I think he still needs to prove himself. And show to Canadians who he is, what he stands for. And once we get an election, I suspect that a lot of Canadians will feel better in dealing with the wrath of Donald Trump. It is a crisis.
Let's hold on the topic about Mark Carney there for a moment. Actually, let's drill down on that. I did a monologue on the channel saying that the whole Liberal leadership race should have just been an email, just like I think. I should have looked at that one. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I saw it gain traction as well on the channel. So
Shouldn't be in the email. Yeah, that sounds about right.
right. And it's about the same thing that we saw with Justin Trudeau in 2021. The election just went like, and I thought, oh, you could have just written that in an email and told us that, oh, well, by the way, I declared another election and I won, or I declared myself a winner. But my greatest problem with that Liberal leadership race was actually the manner in which they had it. 4 intelligent candidates. And I say that, and I think it almost offended people on the channel when I say they're intelligent people, but they're intelligent in their own right with the things they've done in their careers. But they were essentially preaching to the choir, debating an echo chamber of thoughts, and they called it a family debate. It almost sounds like, why on earth did you call that a debate? Because I felt like, one, it didn't capture any philosophy for any of the candidates, especially Mark Carney, who looked like he was already staged to be the winner of the race already, and even kind of coronated by Justin Trudeau. But let me not be the one talking about this. I don't know what you felt about the leadership debate and the process that led to the selection of Mark Carney altogether.
I'll be honest, I didn't follow the leadership race at all. I did hear some candidates being eliminated or disqualified, which made me a little bit uncomfortable because it wasn't clear as to why they were disqualified. The Ruby Dhalla case to me was a bit troubling. So they said that there were 10 different reasons why she was disqualified, but it didn't seem clean because Ms. Dhalla seemed upset, seemed to have been in disagreement with the party. So they went down to 4, and I agree with you. I mean, Kierna Gold and Freeland. I've met Chrystia Freeland, very nice person, but you're right, absolutely. The thing about the leadership race I thought that was really interesting is that you saw when Prime Minister Trudeau was elected in 2015, he was elected with a very centrist platform. And then he went way left and never looked back. And of course, in 2021, when he got the minority government with the NDP, it got even worse. And so I think that people didn't vote for what they got in 9.5 years. That's my own personal opinion, I think. And so I think that all candidates that were part of the leadership race recognized that Canadians wanted more of a centered government. And the Liberals had the luxury to do that. I mean, Liberals don't necessarily govern based on convictions. They govern based on context. And that's a big difference. Liberals can change their minds. They're liberals. So they govern based on what is seen appropriate for that given time. And so that's why sometimes you will see a prime minister like Paul Martin who's very right wing, and sometimes you'll actually see a prime minister who's very left wing like Justin Trudeau, or his own father actually was very left. So they took the liberty over the last 10, 12 weeks to go from left to center. And if you saw Mark Carney's agenda, Chrystia Freeland, they all stole ideas from the Conservatives, the carbon tax, and they actually decided to go against the capital gains tax. I mean, they did actually present a lot of conservative ideas. And so I think that the Liberal Party did change a little bit just based on the 4 candidates, but has it really? And that's why I think from now on, from today, with Carney's inauguration or sworn in ceremony, I think we'll know more about where the Liberal Party is going. Because right now it's a bit confusing because the last 9 years has been way left, lots of social programs, huge deficits, higher taxes, carbon tax, and everything else. And now what? So are we going to be seeing more of the same, or are we going in a different direction? So with the Conservatives, people are pretty clear. Whether they like it or not, it's pretty clear where they're going. In my view, it's not very clear right now.
It's not clear to me either. And I was saying the same thing on the channel that I think they robbed themselves in that debate. They robbed themselves of the opportunity to present themselves and their philosophy.
You mean the Liberals?
And the Liberals, and now. And they didn't only rob themselves they deprived Canadians, 44 million people, of their right to know their governing philosophy as individuals. I think worst of them all actually was someone like Frank Bailey's, who is a business executive, who is kind of a wild card in between. A lot of people actually don't know him, but he robbed
By the
himself
way,
of it.
actually, I know his sister is a faculty member here at Dalhousie. So,
Oh,
but I've never met
fun
Frank.
fact.
It's Françoise Baylis, a very strong academic. She's been really cheering for her brother, but as you know, he didn't have much of a chance.
You were saying that the last 10 years has been a decline or a movement towards the far left in principle and ideology for the Liberal Party. I opine that the reason why we saw a debate or even a change of government was because essentially Canadians disapproved of the work of Justin Trudeau over the last 10 years. 22% approval rating, that's what he had as at December last year when he said he was going to step down from office. Canadians not only disapprove of his work, they disapprove of someone like his finance minister, Chrystia Freeland. But now, the entire race, and in fact, the rhetoric that we are seeing right now, has nothing to do with that disapproval over the last 10 years. It looks to me like there is a deflection from the real problems that the country has been dealing with, issues with affordability, rising numbers of food banks, clogged healthcare system, and housing crisis going on, immigration crisis that they caused. Now talking about even drugs across the border, porous borders that Trump has talked about. Nobody's talking about that anymore. In fact, we're not talking about the 62 billion deficit that Chrystia Freeland left us in the fall. Everything now has been taken over by the conversations about Trump's tariff. But I don't think that's the fundamental problem that we have in the country. It's an additional problem, but I don't think that's the fundamental problem. Well, I don't know how you appraise that political deflection that we're seeing right now.
We have a problem in Canada with how people get their information and what becomes topical, what becomes the ballot box question. And in order to really clearly define what the ballot question is or going to be, you need an informed public. I mean, right now, what you're seeing from, I hate to say this, but legacy media, they all watch each other and they'll try to cover the same stories, and it's all about the flavor of the day. Only on podcasts like yours, you go in depth into some of the issues and you try to understand what is actually really happening. You don't have a whole lot of that anymore. I'm invited to podcasts all the time. This is my third this week alone. And I have my own podcast as well. And I think people are starting to really shift away from legacy media because of that. Because right now, you're absolutely right. It's all about tariffs and Trump, and everyone is asking the same question: who's the best prime minister to face Donald Trump? But to your point, I actually think it's a really important point. It's not just about Donald Trump, it's about the future of our country and the problems that we have to face and address. And for many years, we actually haven't addressed. And right now, we have the fascination around Donald Trump is forcing us to look at interprovincial trade barriers. And now, all of a sudden, we just fixed everything. We didn't fix everything. So last week, Ottawa announced that it was eliminating all trade barriers. But what was missed is that it is eliminating all trade barriers. What was missed is that provinces have to do the heavy lifting. But not only that, food is excluded, which is my area. Food is not going to be tackled. Why? Because of supply management. And we all know why supply management is being excluded, because it's a political bomb. It's suicide for any politicians to actually address supply management because of the quota system. And there's $30 billion worth of quotas out there. Farmers would want to hold on to their quotas. So there's a lack of audacity to address issues. The deficit is another one, 62 billion. My goodness. We should be screaming off of our rooftops to say, listen, our children and our grandchildren will be paying for this. But nobody's really paying any attention to some of these things. And we are taxed a lot in Canada. I think most Canadians don't mind being taxed if it's spent well in a responsible manner. But if it's not spent well, we've seen a lot of scandals when it comes to spending in the last decade or so. I think people feel uneasy about the accountability, the level of accountability that we have seen coming from Ottawa in the last decade or so.
Is the issue you mentioned with media and even trust in mainstream media, which I don't really want us to get into because that's another kettle of
And I
fish on
deal
its
a
own.
lot with media myself, and I can understand, like I've been dealing with media for 25 years. I do 20, 30 interviews a week. with media. I get it. I mean, they're under a lot of stress, under a lot of pressure. Most of the time, I have to spend 5 minutes just to explain what the issue is because they don't understand. They're being asked by their editor, their boss, to cover this or that, and they have 2.5 minutes to explain to the Canadian public a very complex issue. And we've seen cuts, lots of cuts. Like some reporters have to do the work that typically three people would do about 10 years ago. So I get it. It's been tough for them for sure. And of course, they're paid right now by Ottawa. And so they're scared. If conservatives actually win, we're going to see even more layoffs in the media. So you can see that there's a bit of a bias towards the status quo because of that. But what I'm starting to see, though, are Canadians noticing that they're not well served by the media, legacy media. And that's why Trump's win, I think, was the trigger. I deal with a lot of Americans myself. Since Trump's win, I don't know about your podcast, but my podcast, the listenership has actually exploded because all of a sudden people are saying, you know what? I'm going to get, if Trump got elected by going on podcasts in America, maybe something is going on there that I want to know. And so a lot more people are actually going towards podcasts now and to get their information. And who can blame them?
Yeah, very much rightfully so. And that's why I think someone like Pierre Poilievre, which is this is on the side note, someone like Pierre Poilievre, I think is doing himself a little bit of a disservice by actually not going on podcast. He's playing the Kamala Harris
He's not
card
doing any
that
podcasts?
he's only dealing with mainstream media. The only podcast I've seen Pierre Poilievre is Jordan Peterson's. And is that sufficient? No, because Peterson's is a niche audience, bunch of other podcasts. And I get it also. Canada does not yet have a strong podcast voice like the United States that really helped Trump. And the like of Rogan and Lex Friedman. Those were the podcasts that really pushed Trump in the poll. I don't think Pierre Poilievre is doing a great job with that, to be honest. The other topic like this, which this is going to sound like I'm attacking you and people from your field of work now, is academia. Of late, actually in the last 10 years, if Canadians have not paid attention well, academia has a lot of sway when it comes to public policies. Government and media is going to come talk to people like you, and they're expecting unbiased opinion. Hopefully, that's what they're expecting. But of late, you know what I found actually in academia is there's a kind of an intellectual spell that is on a lot of fields. Especially the social policies in Canada. And I don't think academia has been honest. And I say that carefully because I've read a lot of papers on Google Scholar. The problem is we don't have diversity of thought in academia in Canada. Let me get your opinion about that. What do you think about that?
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, you're an intellectual, okay? You understand this. I'm not sure Canadians understand what's going on with academia. Academia for, I'd say, so I've been an academic for 25 years. And, by the time I actually started my career, it was already happening. I mean, I do think that academia has been hijacked by the left. 95% of academics are left-leaning, and it's been studied. There are papers on this. As an academic, you're hardwired to write grant proposals. Okay, that's not, you're intellectual, but you're not in academia. But to survive in academia, you need to do research. In order to do research, you need grants. But in order to get grants, you have to write grant proposal based on what the government actually wants. People don't understand that governments will frame research agendas all over the country. Most institutions in Canada are publicly funded. And so that's the problem that we have right now. So if someone like me who write op-eds every week in English and French, and frankly, I'm pro-business. I believe in market failures. I believe that businesses are a force of good. That's my belief. I actually believe that taxation may be overdone in Canada. I do believe that. And I believe that people should have the power, not government. Government should actually provide oversight, should be there to protect the public, but the power has to belong to the people. Provinces have to be stronger than Ottawa. That's my belief. But when you go walk on campuses these days, you're not allowed. You're not only that most people don't think like that, you're not even allowed to express yourself. So when I'm actually on campus, I can say, I mean, academia basically created the cancel culture. And if you express any opinion that would favor counterculture that you would find on campuses, you will be canceled. And so that's why, for example, what has happened to, say, Wayne Gretzky of late, because everyone is actually pro-Canadian and anti-American, and they decided to cancel Wayne Gretzky. People are asking for his citizenship. That's exactly what's going on campuses right now. There's no diversity of thought. So what you're saying, your observation is incredibly accurate.
I'm certain you're enjoying this conversation right now and you can't wait to get back into it. But permit me to hold you for a second here. More than 95% of the viewers on the channel haven't subscribed yet. And it goes a long way in helping the channel. But if you can click on the subscribe button right now, it will go a long way in helping to improve the quality of the work on the channel and the quality of guests that you see on this channel every time. Please do me that favor, click on the subscribe button. I want to achieve 20% subscriber to viewer count this time.
A counter argument. If a professor is full tenure, you could hardly get fired. Yes, you're seeking funding and the government has the big bucks and mostly props being funded by public funds. But if a full tenure professor could hardly get fired, why would a professor in that regard be afraid to speak up?
Because you want to work with people. I mean, first of all, we're humans. Humans want to be liked. That's one thing. And you want to have friends. You want to collaborate. You're right. Absolutely right. Once you're tenured, why bother? But at the end of the day, it's about reputation. There are more and more academics who believe that their job is to save the world from itself. They're advocates. They're not researchers, they're advocates. The other day, I actually got a phone call from a professor from the University of Toronto. She wanted help with surveys. We do a lot of surveys as a lab. We have partnerships with Angus Reid and Leger, and so we have some expertise in that area. So she was calling me to get some help, and her area is environmental science, and she wanted to understand why Canadians are flying all over the world, and clearly she feels that people shouldn't be flying. She told me actually on the phone that she doesn't fly at all in protest because she believes that we shouldn't be flying and pollute. So it's her choice.
Good for her.
But good for her. But when we start to talk about her project, her intent was to actually do research to convince Canadians to stop flying. I mean, that's not her job. Her job is to understand maybe the impact of flying, maybe, and give that information to the Canadians. But it's not to influence and get, say, governments to implement policies and things like that. It's really up to Canadians to decide. I mean, I fly all the time, and when you go to airports, I can tell a lot of people are flying because it's their job. And that's what they do. And if you're in business, and I do business also, like I'm going to Brazil in next month, I can tell you, I don't think I could do what I'm supposed to do in Brazil from Halifax. I just can't do. I need to meet some people. I need to visit farms. I need to visit some companies there to understand exactly what they're going through, the challenges that they're going through. Like I said, campuses are filled with advocates, and I think we've lost the right to be arbitrators of truth. I think we lost that license a while ago. A lot of Canadians know that, and you've recognized that yourself.
Yeah, I think the university campuses should be the arbitrators of truth and kind of the intellectual conscience to governments. Because otherwise, we all become ideologically possessed and charged by government rhetoric. But academia should be the conscience when it comes to government policies. But I think it has failed woefully with respect to
I'll
that.
give you an example of what's happening on campus. I'm being completely honest here. So I'm part of two major grants, multi-million-dollar grants as a co-PI. So one is about entrepreneurship, and that's going well. But there's also an element of diversity and helping Indigenous communities. For about 2 hours, we debated whether or not we should actually pay people to go to seminars so they can learn about entrepreneurship. This is where I'm incredibly uncomfortable because we're seeing it's a $4 or $5 million project. We're going to be seeing taxpayers' money paying people to attend seminars so they can start a business. I don't know about you, but when you think about entrepreneurship, the last thing you want to do is pay entrepreneurs because their job is to generate growth. But now we're at a point where it's absolutely acceptable, socially acceptable, to actually pay people to attend seminars, to learn how to start a business, instead of getting them to pay and value the information that they're given by entrepreneurs and other things. And also in another meeting, we actually spent 2 hours debating whether or not people should get a mandate letter or a gathering letter, like the term. So typically when you start a project, you give different directors or different people a mandate letter to tell them exactly what they need to do. It's totally normal when you start a project. We spent 2 hours 2 hours saying no, mandate letters aren't necessarily the appropriate term. We should actually call them gathering letters. That's what academics are doing right now. We're actually trying to click boxes, making sure that everyone's happy, that we actually make sure that we honor all values, we don't offend anybody, and that's really counterproductive. And that's all paid
And
by taxpayers' money.
yeah, and academics will rob itself of the intellectual rigor that is supposed to go into the work when you want to check all of those boxes. You will end up doing nothing. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what you sacrifice. I guess in that case, maybe we need Doge in academia.
Well, I mean, I don't think Doge is very Canadian, to be honest. Though, just do we need to actually look at the waste in academia? Absolutely. Right now, most universities are in a deficit. In Ontario, there's only 2 universities that aren't in a deficit situation. That's U of T and McMaster. That's it. Everyone else. Waterloo has a deficit of $75 million this year. York University has a deficit of over $100 million. But let me tell you, based on how these institutions are run now, and I used to be dean myself, I saw the waste. I mean, we basically have spent a lot of money on useless things that don't necessarily generate growth or create programs that the market needs. It's all about what we think society needs because we know best. Because right now, a lot of academics see themselves above society. We know, what you need, and let us do the work. But that doesn't pay bills. And I don't think it actually helps society because at the end of the day, people get up in the morning, they go to work, and they contribute to the economy the best they can. But at the end of the day, it's about survival. And look at what's going on with tariffs right now. Many, many Canadians, 40% of Canadians are concerned about their job, losing their job because of what's going on with America. So they're not thinking about a new program in environmental anthropology or a new program in, I don't know, feminism, or we have a new course on Taylor Swift.
Is that right?
Yeah, this is what's going on because they think that Taylor Swift phenomenon is important to academics and to students. It is not. It is not.
Is that for real though?
It is absolutely for real. Yes. So there's been courses about Star Trek. There's been courses about Hunger Games. It's all the academics think they're above society, and they think this is important to study. We should study it, and we should actually have students pay tuition to actually take these courses. It's unbelievable. University of Guelph has a course now on Taylor Swift.
Damn it. Wow.
Like I told you, I was administrator for 10 years. I had academics in my office asking me to do all sorts of things. And when I went to council with all faculties, people vote for this stuff. People say, yeah, it's important. Absolutely. They don't, because most academics aren't linked to society. They are absolutely disconnected from society. And most of them, I hate to say this, I'd be very honest with you, because you opened the door, my friend. You're the one that asked me what I thought. Most people in academia wouldn't get a job in real life like you. I don't think they would be able to.
I didn't expect that much.
Well, you opened the door, which I thought deserved
To be
clear
yeah.
explanation as to what is going on.
Right.
Academia is sick.
How do you overhaul the system? We should be talking about tariffs, but we've started talking about this, and I think it's an equally important conversation.
Well, let's go back to tariffs for a second. If you go on campus, okay, I actually was guest lecturing a class the other day with some faculty members. Okay. And the response, so my job as an academic is to get people to understand what is going on. Okay. And I go into a class of graduate students and faculty. So what do you think about the Trump regime so far? What do you think about what's happening right now? And the response I got from academics and graduate students on university campus is, oh, Trump is an idiot. Okay, that's all you got? Are we at Tim Hortons here or are we on university campus? Is that your assessment of what's going on? Trump is an idiot? You may disagree with him. Can we just take a step back and try to understand what is really going on here? He was duly elected by almost 80 million people. Something is going on. Now, whether or not these 80 million people voted for what's happening right now, and I highly doubt, but there's something happening. And rationally, I just believe that the Trump administration is mixing trade policy with foreign policy, with domestic fiscal policy all at once. And he's actually trying to go back to pre-First World War and get tariffs to fund government to reduce taxes. To me, that's where he's going. Is it the right thing to do? No. No, not at all. But that's where he's going. But most people don't take the time to understand what is going on because they're so entrenched into their own thoughts of judging people. And Trump is being judged superficially without actually getting academics to understand what is going on here. They're just judging because it's a populist thing to do. Trump's an idiot.
If you say the approach with tariffs is wrong, why do you say that?
Tariffs punish people financially. There are two schools of thought with tariffs, okay? Some economists will say tariffs don't really make things more expensive. People will just opt for something cheaper. They're always going to go for something cheaper. It's not going to affect them, really. And that's I think that's the argument that Trump is buying with Lebnick, with our Lebnick, the Secretary of Commerce. I think they actually believe that Americans will always go to the cheapest option and won't be impacted by products coming from elsewhere that are tariffed. I think that's his reasoning. I'm just guessing here. But the other school of thought that I embrace is the fact that tariffs are inflationary. Why? Because I'll give you an example of Canada right now. So if we are to apply counter tariffs against American products, food products, let's say that you're importing products, tomatoes from California. So you buy a tomato from California, it comes into Canada, and that tomato is tariffed. You put that tomato on shelves at a grocery store. Do you think that tomato is the only tomato that's going to get more expensive? No. That's not how inflation works. The thing is that tomato that got more expensive because of tariffs will actually bring other tomatoes to be more expensive because consumers don't look at that one tomatoes and other price points. Consumers subconsciously will look at deltas between price points, differentials between price points. So if you affect the price of one tomatoes, other ones will follow. So that's the one thing that scares me a lot from a food affordability perspective with tariffs. Tariffs are a bad idea for Canadians, and they're a bad idea for Americans as well. And that's why my last column last week is that I basically said Ottawa's playing with fire. Ottawa is applying this dollar for dollar tough talk, but dollar for dollar means that Canada is going to get poorer and things are going to get more expensive. And I'm not sure Canadians understand that.
I read almost every article you've written since the last time we talked. I pulled a bunch of information, but we don't have time to go through all of them. But let me read a portion of your article. You said the imposition of tariffs is not about fixing the broken system. It's about reshaping the global trade order to bolster American industries, gain negotiation leverage, and appeal to his political base. You're talking about Trump there. That even if Canada retaliates with 500% tariffs, it will be irrelevant to Trump's calculus. The objective is power, exercising it, consolidating it, and using it to rewrite trade relationships in U.S. terms. With respect to this, everyone is kind of drunken with the same wine in Ottawa right now. Tariff for tariff, 25%, 50%. You say even if we go up to 500%, it's not going to make Trump relent and it's going to ruin our economy.
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Stephen Poloz, the former governor of the Bank of Canada, agrees with me. Lloyd Axworthy, who's a former foreign affairs minister under Chrétien, a liberal government, agrees with me as well. They've all said the same thing. I've just repeated what they said, basically. I think we're actually playing a dangerous game. What Doug Ford did this week with electricity, I think is a better way to do it, to actually get America's attention. And guess what? Doug Ford raised prices for electricity, taxed electricity, and then actually backed down, but actually had meetings in Washington. And this week was all over the news in America. Lots of Americans think that Doug Ford is the Prime Minister of Canada. I mean, he's the most popular politicians that we have in Canada in the U.S. because I follow U.S. news all the time, and Americans know who Doug Ford is now, but they don't.
Oh,
Wall Street
well,
know
technically,
that
we
Mark.
don't have a prime minister.
Well, Wall Street knows who Mark Carney is, okay, but Americans know who Doug Ford is.
If that be the case, what about our internal trade barriers? You talked about that as well.
Yep.
What's the roadmap to actually resolve that? The major problem and bottleneck that I've seen a lot of economists talk about here is Quebec.
Yep.
And maybe even the East Coast. How do you tackle that issue with internal trade in Canada? I know Pierre Poilievre's advertising is a political campaign based off of that, and the Liberals are stealing that as well. But is that even possible? Because it looks like this is a problem that has been around since the 1800s. In fact, I was saying that if Trump wants to really annex Canada, he should better think about Quebec, because I don't know how he's going to deal with that. We've not been able to tackle that problem since the 1800s, not just Quebec, the East Coast generally. There are barriers to trade on this side of the country. How do you tackle that problem?
Well, so first of all, this 51 state thing is ridiculous. I think it's not going to happen. It's ridiculous, and we should stop talking about it as we were giving more credential to the concept. What's not being covered in legacy media in Canada is that I've seen a few surveys in Americans asking if they would want Canada as a 53rd state. And the majority of surveys are saying that Americans don't want Canada as a 51st state at all for economic reasons. They don't see the value in getting Canada annexed because they're fine with the America that they have now. And that's not being talked about. So this 51 state, which came out of Mar-a-Lago's meetings between Trump and Trudeau, if you remember, it happened a few days before we spoke the first time, and it got traction, but it got politicized as well to support Trudeau. Trudeau has been repeating it and repeating it and repeating because it serves them well, and it pushes the Liberals up in the polls because you have Team Canada, you have the Liberals defending Canada, defending our borders and things like that, but it's...
And the elbows high, people.
Elbows up. Yeah. But China just actually issued tariffs on us, attacking our canola farmers, attacking our pork farmers, attacking our harvesters right here in the Atlantic. Lobsters, we sell for $1.4 billion worth of lobsters to China. That's all up in the air because of tariffs implemented on Canada from China over the weekend. Do we have our elbows up against China now? No, nothing. So when you politicize something like this, it makes the public less well-informed. And that's what's happening right now. The CBC, CTV, they're all with this elbows up. Let's go against the 51st state. It's a little ridiculous, I think. We should focus on actual problems. As you mentioned earlier, we should focus on actual problem and accept the fact that the 51st state thing will never, ever happen. It's just noise, and Trump loves to make noise and provoke. That's what he does.
I think the other way some people have praised this, and I think you mentioned it in one of your articles, is to think that Trump is just economically reckless. Would you agree with that kind of statement?
Well, I mean, he's hard to follow. I believe in money, and I believe that money never lies. And when you look at the stock market right now, when you look at markets in general, markets are telling Trump that he's reckless right now. I mean, you have to be blind not to see that right now. I mean, the entire world economy is being shaken up because of what's going on with Donald Trump. With Canada, it's unclear to me what the end game is, what he wants, really. And like I said, I mean, I think Doug Ford has the right language. He was asked, well, how would you deal with Donald Trump? You would sit down with him and say, what does a win look like? And work our way back. And frankly, I don't think that Trump himself knows what a win looks like with Canada. I don't think so. Because to him, it's all about America first. But what he underappreciates, I think, and it's because of how he made his money. He made his money in real estate and media. Same with Lubnick, by the way. He never actually made his money with global trades at all. He made his money domestically. I don't think he appreciates how global trades affect the world economy and how the world economy is all intertwined now. he's simplifying things a little bit. And I think he is reckless, but I'm not sure he understands or knows that yet.
So considering all of these, I think we should begin to wrap up. So considering all of these problems, all of this chaos, and again, I maintain the point, which I'm glad you agree with that for sure. We had fundamental problem as a nation before now. Trump is an additional layer of problem. And in fact, if we didn't put ourselves at a point of economic vulnerability and disadvantage, we would not have had the additional layer of Trump's tariff in Canada, or at least not to the magnitude that we have it right now. But we have our inherent internal problems that we've created. We've created economic vulnerability. We've created social discord. We've created political divide. And I think a lot of that has been amplified over the last 10 years. And Canada in the last 10 years has also been portrayed as a nation that has to apologize for almost every economic interest that the nation should have. And it's almost like, oh yeah, we're inherently this racist nation. We're inherently this nation that needs to be the moral conscience to the rest of the nations. Even if it's to our detriment at a huge magnitude, we have to still be the nation. And if otherwise you speak against such, you are the pariah. That's the way we've actually portrayed ourselves, even among the G7. But we have all this cascaded layers of problems. We can talk about the politics of it, but I'm actually more interested in charting a roadmap out of it. What will be that thing that's a new prime minister, which I'm hoping not Mark Carney, because I don't think that guy holds the cards to actually solve the problem. But what would be that thing that a new prime minister would actually do to take us, solve that problem that can ripple on the rest of the problems and begin to solve those ones? What's that thing?
So I think we're leaving the Trudeau era being weaker, to be honest, because the question you have to ask yourself, are we better off than when Trudeau took over in 2015? I don't think the answer is yes. I think we're poor.
We can answer that with he grew up a middle class.
That's right. Exactly. And so, but I do think that the most important thing for Canada right now is to think about our reputation abroad. Like I said, I work with Texas A&M, University of South Florida, and with everything that's gone on the last 9-10 years, it hasn't been good for our reputation. We need to focus on our reputation, and the only way to do that is to be taken seriously and making proper decisions with trading partners and not focus on virtue signaling. I hate to say this, but what we've seen in the last 10 years is populism, to just making sure that people feel good about the government. And we have to stop that. We have to start focusing on making tough decisions for the future of our country. That's what we need to focus on right now, whether it's Mark Carney. And frankly, I can't comment on Mark Carney because I don't know who he is as a prime minister. I know who he is as a banker, but I have no idea how he's going to be as a leader. And I have no idea what the platform is going to be for the Liberal Party. No idea. I know where Conservatives are going. I know where the NDP is going, but I don't know what the Liberals stand for right now. I have no clue. So I can't comment on whether or not Mark Carney is the right person, but he needs to make that clear in the next 40 days so Canadians can actually make a proper decision. So it doesn't matter who it is in power. I think it's important that we actually start making decisions for the right reasons and not just for virtue signaling.
So how should an individual also appraise leadership so that they can actually see those traits? Well, I think that's the other problem we have.
Let's actually push aside style and focus on delivery and execution. So, because here's the thing about the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party. The Liberal Party, they always have to love their leader. They have to love their leader. Conservatives aren't like that at all. Conservatives, they have to respect the leader. And I think that's what Canada needs. Canada needs a prime minister that they'll respect and not just love.
Very well said. I don't think I'd look at it like that before, actually. That's good. Not to love. But yeah, that's actually been amplified a lot in recent years.
Yeah, if you respect someone, they can do the job. They can do the job for sure.
Yeah, and I think respect actually will earn love eventually. Love may not necessarily earn the respect, especially if the love is just based off of fluff, like not soft. Yeah. But I should let you go, Dr. Charlebois. It's been a little more relaxed conversation than scripted this time, but I enjoyed every bit of it, actually.
It's been great. It's our second one, and it's always great. Thank you again for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, thank you too. And have a great day.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Revaluate is a project I embarked upon to spark meaningful conversations that can inspire critical thinking as we navigate the adventures of life. The analytics on this channel show about 95% of the viewers on the channel haven't subscribed yet. So you do me a favor by clicking the subscribe button right now. Then I'll keep my promise to continually improve on the quality of the conversations that are produced on this channel every time.